Hello, everybody. Welcome to Highway of the Hidden. I'm your host, Polar Bear. And on tonight, we got Wyatt, one half of Boone County Cryptid. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Brad, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Just, surviving this hot week that we've had down here. How's the weather up there?
It's been pretty hot up here. I've been, you know, sweating pretty hard when I go out to mow the grass and stuff. So I'm
Yeah,
ready for winter time.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, all the people that were crying that wanted the 100-degree heat, now's their time to shine.
The way I look at it, you can always put more clothes on, but you can only take so many off. So
That's true. That's true. Yeah, because I don't want to be running around getting burnt all over my body.
all right.
But so we've been talking a while. We met through DA's podcast, and then we started emailing and subscribed to each other's channels.
Right.
And you had sent me some pretty, pretty interesting pictures. And you've had some very scary encounters along with some interesting encounters. Would you mind telling the people about them?
No problem. Where do you want me to start at, Brett?
Let's just start right in the beginning. Let's just jump right in, and then we'll go into details a little later.
Okay. Well, I'll start off, kind of how I got started down the Bigfoot highway, I guess you'd say. Uh, when I was about 10 or 11 years old, uh, I used to live about 10 to 12 miles out on a dirt road. And a lot of it was basically, I mean, there was some open area, but a lot of it was forested area going down through there. So I've always said you can imagine what kind of, if you believe in cryptids, what kind of cryptids could live in a vast wilderness area like that. But anyway, my bus ride, it was really long. And I was getting home from school one day, and my, I can't remember if my grandpa was already there or if he got there just a little bit after I got off the bus. But anyway, I got to talking to him that afternoon, and he's like, "Yeah, I just seen a Bigfoot walk across the road." And of course, me being 10 or 12 years old, kind of got me excited. But so yeah, I guess he said if the school bus would have been just a little bit faster, that they would have seen it walk across the dirt road too.
It's very
So
interesting.
yeah, that's how I got into it. So I guess I've always known since I was a youngster that they live in more than just the Northwest Territories and other areas like that. But uh, so anyway, fast forward, I don't know, 20 something years, I guess, 25. I don't know. My first experience happened in November of 2021. Now we go out to this area called Cave Mountain. It's where we go to deer camp at. It's pretty close to Boxley, Arkansas. It's about 12 miles from there, out on dirt road. Anyway, I hunt up below this area called the fire tower. There's a big old fire tower. And what a fire tower is back in the day, the forest rangers and people would, that's how they started the forest fires. They'd go up in these real tall towers, and they would look for smoke throughout the forest, and that's how they spotted them. So naturally, they called them fire towers. Anyway, I hunt down below this fire tower on this, there's an old logging road down there. And for a little while, it's probably getting pretty grown up now, but you could probably still walk through it pretty easily. Anyway, I'm walking. Let me back up just a second. What made this first experience weird was uh, I'm sitting up there getting ready to go down to my hunting spot, and this other group of hunters comes up, and they start asking me if I'd seen their buddy. I guess he'd walked out of camp that day or early that morning, and they hadn't seen him since. I'm like, no, I hadn't seen him. Now they didn't help. They didn't ask me to help look for him or anything like that. Uh, I started walking down to my spot to hunt, and I'm pretty sure nothing ever came of that because I was there all that weekend, and there wasn't any game wardens out looking for anybody. So I'm assuming he probably showed up back to camp that evening. But anyway, I'm walking down to my stand, which is just sitting beside a tree because it's out on the national forest. So I didn't want to. I don't ever put a stand up out there. I just pick a tree to sit beside and wait for the deer to come by. But anyway, as I'm walking down there, I start hearing what I can only describe as wood knocks. And this went on probably, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes probably. maybe less than that. And it wasn't real crisp wood knocks, but you could tell it was wood on wood. You know, some of them you'll get that sounds like Louisville sluggers, but this kind of sound more of a like a damp knock. Anyway, this goes on for 10, 15 minutes probably. And I yell out into the woods. I'm like, is anybody out there? Because, if it was that guy, maybe he's knocking on a tree to signal for help. But nobody ever answered me. And I got to talking to other people. They're like, well, usually the universal sign of being lost in the woods, if you're a hunter, is 3 shots in the air. And that's how you signal somebody if you're needing help. So anyway, I go sit down. I probably should have walked out of the woods right then when I heard that, but me being a ignorant country boy, I decided to go. I'm just going to go ahead and go sit down. And I'd always, when I heard it, I'd always believed in Bigfoot. But I said, can I use a little French word real quick?
Go ahead.
I said, no fucking way. So I go sit down. It eventually stopped. A while later, my buddy, he came up kind of in the same direction that I was hearing this stuff from. He's real good about navigating the forest because we've all hunted out there for years, so he knows every which way to get everywhere out there. But he comes walking up towards where I'm sitting, and I start telling him about it. He's like, well, do you think it might have been a woodpecker or something? I'm like, well, I've heard woodpeckers before, and this didn't sound like it. And of course, when we got back to camp, I started telling everybody about it. Nobody really believed me. But so I just kind of left it at that. And then I guess that was the first experience, and it was just wood knocks. And I've never actually laid physical. I had one time, and I'll talk about this in just a little bit. I've only caught a glimpse of what I think might have been one. Most of these encounters are Class B encounters.
Yeah.
They're pretty spooky Class B encounters. So anyway, I guess my next experience would have been, March or April of 2022. My wife, my little girl, her mom and dad, we were all over on our property. We live here in town, but we've got personal property over in Newton County. We've got some acreage over there. So we were out there. I don't know if you've ever morel mushroom hunted before, but they're like a delicacy around here in the springtime. Everybody looks for them. So anyway, we're out on our property looking for these mushrooms. And I'm down there with my wife. And I start hearing what sounds like a baby crying in the woods. And it's some distance off. I don't know how far, but it's a ways away. And I asked her if she heard that, and she's like, yeah. And heard it again. I'm like, well, I told her because all the research and the videos and stuff I've watched, Bigfoot will sometimes use a baby crying in the woods to lure women and children out. Basically, like, striking their maternal instinct to go look for the baby. And so, yeah, we heard that a couple times. Now there are other properties that surround our property. So I guess maybe some chance that there was a person that had their kid outside or their baby outside and it was crying. I guess that could have been a possibility. But I just thought it was odd because my wife and kid, of course, her dad was there too and her mom. But I found it odd because my wife and kid were with me that day. They're both females. But had that happen. And then I guess the next time it'd have been in the same property. This would have been November of 2022, I believe. And it's deer season, so I decided I'm gonna try to hunt over there and see if I can get me something. So I go down in this little valley. I've been hunting all day. I can't remember exactly. It was probably, I'm not even gonna put a time on it. It was sometime afternoon probably. But I go down in this little valley on the property there, and I sat down and I'm waiting for a deer to come by. And something growls at me. Now, it wasn't real loud, but whatever it was, it sounded like it meant business. It was kind of like a. So I'm like, okay, I'm moving. I'm going to the other side of the property. So that's what I did. It took me a while. I took my time getting back over there, so it was a while later when I got back to the other side. But when I got over there and got back down in the woods a little ways, I hear the same thing. And I hear, "Bruh," again. I'm like, well, there's either two of something out here or something's following me. So I'm like, okay. And just a little bit after I heard that second growl, something dropped out of a tree. Now, it didn't sound real big when it hit the ground or anything, but of course, in my mind, I know they can, they can spider crawl and stuff. So whatever this was, it looked like it was real close to the ground. I'm assuming that was probably a squirrel. Whatever growled at me, I don't know what that was, but I'm assuming good chance it was a Bigfoot. But whatever hit the ground, I'm not sure what that was. But in my mind, I was thinking, well, that could have been something spider crawling through there because it was black, whatever it was, and
Right.
it moved really fast. But I'm assuming it was a squirrel. So anyway, after that happened, I'm backing out of the woods with my 7 mag pointed down towards the woods, the business end, just in case something was to try to come at me. Now, I didn't leave right away. I stayed there a little while longer, but I wasn't sitting near as far down in the woods as I was, which I wasn't that far to begin with, but I was even less then. But yeah, that was the second experience. I guess I've been third. So there was either two of something or one thing following me, and either way, it's kind of scary to think about when you start running it through your mind. Let's see. I guess the next thing would probably be November of 2023. No, that wouldn't. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna say this one first. I think that we did some stuff before this when we started having. But November of 2023, I go back out to deer camp where I had my first experience. No, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. This was squirrel camp, so this would have been in like September of 2023. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay.
So anyway, we have squirrel camp, the same place we have deer camp, only we're hunting squirrels instead of deer. So anyway, we're all out there and we're sitting around the fire, and it gets time to go to bed. And my buddy's dad, he has a camper, an old camper that they modified with bunk beds so a bunch of people could sleep in it. And he also brought his squirrel dog out there, used it to tree squirrels. Anyway, we're all in the camper sleeping. And I think it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. The dog starts barking. He starts doing like a semicircle around the camp. So that's piqued my curiosity a little bit. I think it's a little weird. And the dog stops barking. And just a little bit later, I hear the door handle of the camper start jiggling back and forth. So I'm thinking, there's something right outside the door. My pew is right over there, right next to the door. So I just laid there in bed to see if it was going to escalate at all, Luckily it didn't. But
Right.
it takes something with hands to jiggle a door handle.
Yeah.
Now there was another guy in a camper just a little ways down from the camper I was sleeping in. But I don't see why he would just get up in the middle of the night and start jiggling a door handle. Especially if he wasn't going to come in and, say, hey guys, is everything all right, So, of course, that took hands to do that. All right. This was the next one, I guess, probably a little bit later in September of that same year. It was my buddy Richard, the one that I'm going to be co-hosting with on Boone County Cryptids. Anyway, we worked together. And I was up there talking to him on his machine. He's like, yeah, you need to come out with me. He's heard stuff before. And I'm like, all right, now I'm game. So we decided to get together, and most of these experiences I'm going to tell you now, most of them have happened we're out on a bass boat in the middle of these coves on Table Rock Lake in Missouri, and Arkansas partly, because Table Rock is on the border of Arkansas and Missouri, so half the time you're on Arkansas and half the time you're on Missouri. But so yeah, we decided we're going to get together. And before we even started going out there, Richard, he had another buddy that he would take fishing out there at night, and they had something whistling at them, and Richard would whistle back, and whatever whistle that Richard would do, it would do the same exact thing. And that guy later on, he was on the same shift as us at the time. He asked me, "Were you up there in the woods whistling at us?" I'm like, and this is at like 1 o'clock at night in the middle of the woods on the
Yeah.
lake. I'm like, why would I be out there? We're like, why would he be up there at 1 o'clock in the morning whistling at you?
Right? You got better
So,
places to be, man.
yeah, like in my bed.
Yeah.
So anyway, we decided we're going to start going out there and listening for Bigfoot. And, you know, Richard really likes to fish and stuff. So I'm not that great of a fisherman, but I kind of, I did, I tried. I try. I'm not near as good as he is, but, so anyway, we're out there. When we put in the boat, it's on the Arkansas side. And when we get to where we normally go, it's on the Missouri side. So anyway, we get put out there and we're going back into this one cove. Now I think we hear some stuff, you know, a little bit. And then I think as we're coming, I think we were coming back out of the cove, if I remember right. I usually have my computer where I can read all this stuff off and say it the same way every time.
Right.
Because I like, you know, that's just a way of keeping it consistent. If my details get a little mixed up, that's because I'm doing this all from memory.
Hey, no worries, man.
So we get to shine our flashlight over on this little area of the bank over here. And it's by this old log that's laid down. And we see something, it's like a white circle. And we're shining our light on it. And then it just vanishes, goes away. It wasn't like a bright light. It was like enough to catch the light. It was enough to catch the light that you were shining on it. But it was a white circle. And it just vanished. And like 5 minutes or less later than that, we heard a wood knock. And this is the crispest wood knock you ever heard in your life. It sounded like two Louisville sluggers being hit together. And just a little bit after that, Richard could hear something walking on the shore of the lake, but we can't see anything. And this is going to be the most, you know, disturbing part of everything, is because we can hear all this stuff, but we haven't been able to lay eyes on it yet. So anyway, we get out of there. I think we go back in October of 2023. So anyway, we're in a different cove, still on the Missouri side, and we're coming back out of this cove. And I catch something out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, whoa, Richard, I think I see something over here. And we shine our lights over there, and there's this teepee-looking structure. That's the only way I know how to describe it, is it a bunch of sticks laid together like a teepee. And of course, you know, if you listen to any Bigfoot stuff at all, you'll hear about them talking about structures and stuff. But I got to talking with DA and stuff, and we discussed there's a good possibility that it was a man-made structure, because there was some rope intertwined in it, and there was like some big white bricks laying pretty close to it. But I also talked to other people, and they said, well, these things have hands, so they could put the rope through through there like that. Well, yeah, that's true. So we got off the boat. We got off the boat on the bank there where what this structure was, and we get to looking around. And there's kind of like this, and I took a picture of this. I didn't send it because you can't really see anything in it, but there's kind of this big impression there in front of that structure. So I guess it could have been where something stepped down real hard, but the ground was too compact to leave a good track or whatever. So, and we also found a bunch of little clamshells or whatever they are laying on the bank. And of course, that could have been raccoons eating these things. But the weird part about it is Richard, and I don't remember saying this, but Richard does, and this is what he tells. There was a stick in the back of the structure laying on top of another stick, perfectly balanced. And that kind of it seems odd to me, because for a stick to stay there balanced like that, that's kind of weird, especially.
Yeah.
But the weirdest part was when we get up back in the boat and we're still shining our lights on the structure, our spotlight goes completely dead. And, you know, that's another thing with Bigfoot encounters. A lot of times is electronics will start getting messed with. People's batteries will be drained and cameras and all sorts of stuff. And then we get away from that area a little while later and the spotlight starts working fine again. So,
Damn.
yeah. All right. Trying to think the next time. I guess it probably would have been March of 2024. We go out there and we hear some stuff. I can't remember. We might have seen some eye shine. I'm not really sure. I don't remember this one as well because there wasn't a whole lot that happened. But oh yeah. I'm pretty sure we heard like a branch break or something, and we heard it on one side of the lake, and then we keep going down the lake a little further as we're coming out of this cove, and Richard makes a little whoop, like a baby Bigfoot would, whoop,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden something busts the brush on the opposite side of the trail going up the hill. And, we're shining our lights and still can't see nothing. That's the frustrating part is as close as it was, you should have been able to turn your light over there and see something staring back at you through the trees.
Right.
But that was about it on that one. And then May of 2024, we go back out. I know we go back out on the lake a lot, but when you keep having activity, you keep going.
Exactly.
May of 2024, we get out there and we're trolling along, and there's this high line right away that goes across the lake out there. So we're shining our spotlight up in there to see if we can see anything. Spotlight goes dead again. So we turn the boat around. That's usually where we turn the boat around, is right there at that high line right away. We turn the boat around and we're going back the other way. And behind us, something lets out the loudest whistle I've ever heard in my life. And it changed octaves as it got louder. And I don't know of any human that could have whistled this loud. About 5 minutes after that, a pack of coyotes goes off right behind us. And I guess these are phantom coyotes because, we shine the light back there. They're close enough, you should be able to just see them right there.
Yeah.
Turn them, can't see nothing. And you may call me crazy when I say this, and I was talking to DA, and I guess there have been, I don't know, about theories or people talking about Bigfoot using coyotes to do their bidding, basically. So
Heard that.
I kind of got to wondering, were they using those coyotes to, maybe come get us or maybe know where we're at or whatever? Anyway, we keep going down. I think we heard, we heard a big, like a tree break or something, and that one encounter that I told before this one, I can't remember that may be the tree break I'm talking about. I know it happened in May 2024, so that other one may be irrelevant. But we heard that tree break, and then just a minute later, something hits the water on the other side of the boat. And I'm talking, it hit loud. When I heard that, I turned around, and this is the only time I've drew my pistol while I've been out in the field, but I drew my pistol because something was there. I don't know what it was. But
Yeah.
we're assuming it was they threw a big rock in the lake, and it had to have been a huge rock. But when I drew the pistol, I didn't have my finger on the trigger. I just drew it, ready to use it if I needed to. That was probably one of the more scary times, just because we were surprised by it. Yeah, I didn't. That was probably one of the more scary times because something hit me. It went through my mind. What if one jumped in the lake? What if that was one jumping in the lake? It was that loud. I mean, it was probably just a big rock, but
still.
Yeah, it kind of freaked me out a little bit.
Yeah, because I've heard that before. I've heard them getting in water with people, like trying to get to the boat and stuff. I don't know if it's try to run people out of their territory or why they do it, but they will. I've heard they jump in before.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't turn around and see one in the water because I probably would have jumped out of the boat myself.
Yeah, for sure. I don't blame you.
And the bad part about when we go out in these coves is there's so much big brush and trees underneath the water that we can't use the big motor. We're having to troll out of these coves, so we're not getting anywhere in a hurry. And if they wanted to get to the boat, well, they're going to get to the boat.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. So, yeah, that's what's like. Why can't you? So there's a lot of trees, so you can't use the motor. So it's just straight trolling the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Troll motor.
I
And yeah,
mean,
so you're moving slow.
we would probably use it if we had to. You just got to be extremely careful, or you're going to end up tearing your motor out of pieces, or tearing the boat up. So we always use the trolling motor.
And how wide is the cove? Like, because I mean, you're obviously close, and like, how wide is it?
I don't know. It might be 100 yards across from side to side, and it may
Oh,
be
wow.
wider, maybe wider in spots and more narrow in spots. But
Is
you,
is the active? Is that
go ahead.
sorry? Is the activity usually in the same cove, or is it like different areas?
No, we've had activity in several different coves, but we've had the most activity in this one particular cove,
Okay.
and we've dubbed the two areas where we have the most activity. We've dubbed them Creature Cove.
Okay.
Uh, anyway, I guess the next time, shit, I guess it would have been it's either a little bit later in May or in June of 2024. So we're usually pretty consistent about once a month when we start going. Sometimes the weather hinders you, and this year we haven't been able to get out as much because it's been so flooded, a lot of debris in
Yeah.
the water. Anyway, we're back out there, and this is a different cove this time than our main cove that we normally go to. We get going back in this cove, and this is middle summertime, and for some reason my hands got extremely cold that night. I mean, I was like having to rub them together and all sorts of stuff. I don't know if I had adrenaline pumping or maybe it was just I don't know what it was. My hands were cold, and they shouldn't have been because
Hmm.
it was 60 degrees out there. Anyway, we get going back out in this cove. We get back in there, and we hear something start just breaking the brush. I mean, it sounds like a ruckus going on in there. And I'm trying to get this spotlight of Richard's on. He's like, "Get that damn light on." And I'm like, I'm trying.
Yeah.
And finally get it on and shine it over there. And there's nothing there. But you hear the trees moving, but they're not even moving. It's like a phantom almost. I don't know
Right.
how to explain it. It's like, why are we hearing all this stuff, but there's nothing there? So anyway, that goes on for just a little bit. And I sat down. I had to sit down for some reason. I think maybe was having a small adrenaline dump or something. I sat down, and then behind us on the other side of the lake, I hear something walking up. On it's bipedal, and it's walking up on the other side of the lake. So we had them on both sides again, and a lot of times they're on both sides of the lake when we're out here. There's more times than not we've had them on both sides. So anyway, Richard doesn't get scared very easily, but that night he's like, we need to get out of here. So that's what we did. We turned our boat around and we started going out, and you could hear it walking, following us out of there. But we get out of there that time. So I guess the next thing would have been, you remember DA talking about Combs Ferry, right?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
guess that'd be our next big adventure. So anyway, uh, talking to DA and stuff, and we decided we're going to go out to this old abandoned campground. This campground's been shut down, I think, since the 70s. It's been shut down for quite a while. So anyway, uh, I think it's either the very end of June or early July is when we go out there. So anyway, Richard, he decided he's going to stay on the boat and he's going to ferry everybody across from where we put in the we went and got DA from, and it's basically just a straight shot from where we got them over to Combs Ferry. DA, Robbie, and his son, they were the first group to ferry over there. And DA says no sooner than they got on the ground than they started hearing activity. His son was using the parabolic mic and he was hearing all sorts of stuff. So anyway, it was me and another guy, another one of DA's co-hosts. We were the next boots on the ground. And then Richard brought another group over. So then we had everybody there. So, we had a little team meeting at the beginning of it and, divvying out everything, med kits. And one of DA's co-hosts, well, he's a nurse. So he was going to be our medic for the night. Come to find out later on, when he was getting off the boat, he had actually broke a bone in his leg. and we didn't know
Wow.
that till later on. And I felt really bad when I found out about it because I took his hand and helped him off the boat. So I guess what he must have landed on it wrong when he stepped down.
Yeah.
But we decided we're going to start walking around there, and we come to this area on the ground. Is a dried up area of mud, and we kind of call it a track trap because when it's wet with mud, something will step there and it'll leave a track. And we took a few pictures there. We ended up seeing something that looked kind of like a Bigfoot, not a Bigfoot per se, but a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
It wasn't real clearly defined, and the pictures I took, I couldn't really see anything in it, but I think DA probably has some better pictures of that. So we seen that, and keep going on through there. And then Robbie and DA's son, they're kind of in the back of the group at this time. And I walked down there towards them, and I think they had what they call a psionic camera. I think it's kind of like a thermal, or maybe it's a night vision. I don't really know, but anyway, they could see something on that camera that was pretty good size. And after that, we get to all walking back along this trail, and this campsite, it looked like a nuclear bomb went off on it. There's all sorts of old concrete picnic tables that are all busted up, overgrown. Post-apocalyptic is what I would say.
Right.
And we keep going on, and me and Robbie, we're at the back of the group now, and we're talking back and forth, and I'm on his left and he's on my right. So he catches something across from me. He's like, "Oh, whoa, hold up!" And we shine the light over there, and it's part of a deer carcass hanging in a tree. And we're like, "Okay." Robbie gets DA to come back there, and we sit around. We take some pictures and stuff. I think I sent you the pictures that I took.
Yes, you did.
But it was fresh enough that part of the meat on the skin was still red, and there was blood all over. There was blood below it on the ground. And of course, a lot of people are going to say it was a big cat that put it up there. But in our, what we came up with was this tree was not really big enough for a big cat to get up there and start messing around and putting stuff in a tree.
Right.
And if you look at the picture, it's intricately draped over this tree. All right, something put it there with purpose.
Yeah, it's not just, when I looked at it, it's not like a cat drug it up and you jumped the cat and then it left it,
Yeah.
and it's not a big tree at all. It's not. You could tell it's like almost like a warning sign, like don't come this way kind of deal.
When we got to talking later, we got to thinking, well, it was probably a territorial marker. So anyway, I think it was after we seen that, or after we seen this next thing. The next thing we seen, we walked just a little ways further, and we look off to the right side, and there's the head of a fish in a little crook of a tree. It's about, I don't know, probably eye level. I can't really remember the best in the world, and it's just stuck in this crook of the tree, and you can tell by looking at it that it's not been cut off. It's jagged on the outside edges of it. So something put this fish head in the tree, and we also thought, well, that was probably another territorial marker. So like I said, I can't remember if it was after the carcass or the fish head. Anyway, I text Richard. I'm like, hey, don't get too far away from here because there's something out here. And I'm glad he didn't get too far away.
Right.
Because DA says as soon as we get past that, that's when everything started kind of kicking off. And that's when our medic, we kind of found out that he's kind of hurt. And so we decided it's probably a good time to, probably think about getting out of here. So we get a hold of Richard, and DA and one of his friends, they get on the Google Maps, I think it was, and get to looking for a good spot to exfil. And there's an old boat ramp on the other side of the peninsula. So we get over there, and Richard's already there when we get there. Of course, Richard knows this lake like the back of his hand, so he knew where to get us out at. We make it there, and it's time to exfil. So we start getting on the boat. Well, no, before that, Richard had seen eye shine in the trees, and we go out there and we try to start looking for it a little bit, see if we can see anything. And then it's time to start getting on the boat and getting out of there. It was our medic, and I can't remember the other guy. They went out first. Then it was me and another guy, one of DA's buddies, and then it was just DA, Robbie, and his son left on the bank. He said after the boat had left, these things started converging on them, basically.
Yeah.
Getting closer and closer. And by the time that Richard got back to them in the boat that time, they were down. They had their feet in the water with their pistols drawn back towards that's how close they were getting, whatever it was. So, of course, we were in a bass boat, and you can't take a whole lot of people in a bass boat. So they asked Richard, is there any way we can get all three of us in here? And Richard's like, yeah, we'll just have to go slow. But yeah, I guess when they were leaving, when they finally all got on the boat and were leaving, and they started shining their spotlights in there was like 10 or 12 sets of eyes shine, looking back at them in the woods. So, I mean, when you kind of put two and two together, I mean, I'm not saying it was a Bigfoot, but I don't know of any other. I don't think 10 or 12 bears would have congregated around there.
No.
Because that's not their MO.
And last time I checked, bears don't put fish head in trees or,
exactly.
Intrinsically drape deer skin over. And like you said, man, the tree, you look in the picture in the tree, it's not a big tree. It's not like it was a big oak, some massive. It's a little tree. It's like a shrub, and it's perfectly placed on there. And man, dude,
excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say DA has a picture of his friend, our medic. He's standing in the tree, and you get a better comparison with him standing in front of the tree. You can tell it's not very big, but where the little fish head was at, it was probably about a little bit bigger than that around where it was stuck in the crook of the tree.
A little bitty one, and that blows my mind, man. And I want to go back to the whistles. So the whistle thing, I've always heard about it, and I'll tell you something that happened to me. Maybe you can help me out. So this is something that happened a few years ago. I was hunting, and where I was hunting at, there's nobody around, right? And I'd say about 7:30 in the morning, I hear a whistle, and it's loud.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around because there's nobody else in this area. There's nobody else in these woods. What do you think that might have been? And that's the only whistle I've ever heard in the woods like that. So I've always heard people talk about it, but that's the only time I've actually ever heard the whistle.
Was it really loud?
Yeah.
Probably the same thing we had happen. I think it was one of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like a warning call let the other ones know that you're there or what it is. I think it was a Bigfoot.
Because I can't even imitate it, however you say it. I can't even redo it because it was so loud. It was like, man.
When I heard that, it sent chills up my spine when I heard the one we heard. It was like, what was that?
Yeah. And then I know y'all's trip, there was 5, 6 of y'all on the
there was 7. I think there were 7 on the ground and then Richard in the boat.
And then just so y'all pretty much ventured into true Bigfoot territory.
Yeah. And and like DA says, the peninsula is the perfect place for them to ambush prey and stuff too, because you get them out there on the point of the peninsula, and where are they going to go besides in the water? So
have you been back since to the peninsula or no?
Actually, yeah. Earlier this year, I think it was the end of January, we went back in the daytime, and we actually found another. I don't know if I sent that to you. We found another little piece of a deer skin hanging in a different tree.
I'll have to look at the photos. I know you sent me. I'll have to relook. I'll look at them again when we get off here because I was looking at all of them, and I was looking at them, zooming in, seeing if I could see anything in the background, maybe poking around the tree or something. And I'll look again because I know, there's some pictures people take and you'll zoom in and like the dog man photo, you zoom in and it'll be right there.
Right.
And I'll see if maybe we could see something there. Man, that's crazy. And then to get growled at, I'm going over, some of your stuff that you went over tonight, and to get growled at on both sides and you having to walk out backwards to make sure you don't get ambushed. It sounds like a lot of the encounters that you had were with violent Sasquatches, not like,
Yeah, I mean,
not the patty type,
I, yeah, I mean, I guess if they really would have wanted to hurt me, I probably wouldn't have walked out of there. But uh, yeah, I think they were definitely. It was territorial for sure. They didn't want me there at that time. I don't know. Maybe they had young there at the time or what was going on. But and like I said, I'm not even 100% saying that it's Bigfoot. I don't want
right.
to say that because I don't know for sure. But it kind of fits the MO.
Yeah.
And
And
you know, I,
go ahead.
I went back and I listened to like cougar sounds and stuff like that. And I think somebody was talking that they'd heard big cats out there before. But that's not really a cat's MO to just follow you around. Uh, so
I mean,
the evidence kind of points towards it.
and for a cougar to hunt a human, I think it has to be like severely, severely injured to where we're like the weakest link to it, to where it can take us. I mean, yes, they do attack people, cougars do, but it has to be injured to where it can't take down a deer or something like that.
Right.
It has to almost revert to humans. And so these encounters that, especially up the cove that you go up Cryptid Cove and y'all still go there. Is it mostly at night or late evening, I'm assuming, is when you're having them?
Yeah, it's usually in the middle of the night most of the time.
And that's just
Uh,
when y'all are just out there fishing, just trying to have a good time. And it just,
well, we're usually out there listening for Bigfoot stuff
okay.
because when we've started hearing stuff, we kept going back and back. But Richard likes to fish, so we do a little fishing.
Okay.
He's more into the fishing than I am, but I do a little
Yeah.
bit.
You're squatching and he's fishing. I got you. I
Well,
try to do the same.
He's squatching too, but he's a true fisherman as well. So
Yeah. And that's, we had me and you when we were on the phone earlier, we'd gone over my encounter up in East Texas, and it's not like yours, but I guess you would, I don't know how they class encounters. I'm just now learning about the classes, and for me to
well,
see one
the way I
was
look at it
different.
is there's no encounter that's not important. Every encounter
Right.
it has something to do with it. I mean, to put a puzzle together, you've got to have all the pieces, right? And
Hmm.
seeing one is just one piece of the puzzle. To
Yeah.
know when you start attributing everything else to everything, you're going to have the class B and class. I don't know how far the encounter class goes, but
Yeah.
you're going to have all those too. So
And what blows my mind is with your encounters, man, is like they're so close and but yet so far away at the same time, right? Like you'll turn your light on and it's just not there. Like it's almost like chasing a ghost at that point,
it's kind of what it seems like sometimes.
Because
I've got some.
you,
I've had some. I went back and looked at some of my footage that I've got on one of the last times we went out this year. I'm not even going to talk about it on air. I may talk to you off camera about it, but
yeah, that's fine.
I've seen some weird stuff.
Yeah. Hey, and you know what? That's totally fine. And I understand that, man. And that just blows my mind, dude. And as there's so many good encounters like you've had, and it's just like where they jump in the water or, they bust the brush and you go and you're like, I know they're right there. And you turn it on and you're like, I swear it was right there. And it's not there,
Yeah.
or they call in the coyotes. And I've heard the coyote thing a few times, listening to different podcasts, listening to different people's stories, reading different stories about them, where they'll whistle or something like that and coyotes show up, or they'll make a noise and coyotes, almost like it's I guess like the watcher of the woods for them. I don't know, or their dogs
Right.
or their pets or something. I'm not really sure what the correlation with them and coyotes is, or why somebody with more knowledge can probably answer that question, but or why they do it,
Right. Yeah. I honestly don't have a clue. I wish I did, but I guess we'll figure it out one of these days, maybe.
Right, maybe. And I know where was I gonna? I was gonna ask you something, but I forgot. The spider thing is very creepy. I don't know if I'd ever want to see that one. The spider
I
crawl.
would,
That's
I've heard it's really, they look, I guess I hate to even say it, but they kind of look demonic when they do it, from what I've
I
heard.
would I would imagine so, man. That's got to be because you got to think because everyone they describe them as like shoulder length hair up top, kind of with a human looking face
Right.
and just crawling at you. It gave me goosebumps, and even talking about it gives me goosebumps. Just trying to thinking about that. It's like, oh man,
Yeah.
that's and my luck. That would be the next encounter I have would be something like that, and then I'd be scarred for life and
Yeah, me
have
too.
to have to cancel the podcast.
That'll just give you something good to talk about. But
Yeah, I mean, if I ever could, I might be like some of those people that never talk about it. But man, I don't know, dude. Those are the encounters that you
I've,
had are very interesting.
I've got a dogman encounter if you want to hear it.
Of course, those are my favorite. I love Dog Man.
Before before I get into that, can you hear my dogs in the background? I'm sorry if you can.
Yeah, it's no big deal, man.
Uh, when we were leaving Combs Ferry, we got DA and then back over to the other side. Well, me and Richard uh, we had put the boat in at a different area than where we picked DA and them up. And
Hmm.
when we got back to where we put the boat in originally, we got out of the boat, and I got to shining. We were shining the light on the ground, and I see what looks like a footprint on the ground. I get Richard over there, man. Does this look like a footprint to you? And I took some pictures of it, and I sent them to DA right away. And it's in that set of photos that I sent you. It look it looks like a big track, and then I've got
Yeah,
my wallet sitting there for scale.
I
Uh,
seen that one.
and yeah, I thought that was weird. So that means they either followed us back to the boat, or there was just another group there watching us whenever we left. But so anyway, this will be the time when we went to the lake after Combs Ferry. It'll be the next time. We're back out in our normal cove, and we're not having a whole lot of activity that night. We heard some owls go off. Sounded like owls, but I don't think the end of I really don't think they were owls because owls usually have a trill at the end of their call. And I got to listen, and I actually videoed this the best I could. Uh, and I didn't hear any trills on these owl calls. And Tim Kumbo Baker says most of the time, if they don't have the trill, then most likely they're not an actual owl. They're more like they're a booger. So anyway, we're backing out of this cove, and we decide, well, we're going to go back to this other cove. This is the cove where we found the structure originally, the TP structure. And we get to shine our lights on the bait, and we see 4 or 5 sets of eyes shine, and they're just basically they're laying flat on the ground. That's what it looks like.
All right.
Uh, there's one set that's not laying flat on the ground though. And Richard's seen this. Richard's seen this more than I did, but he said it would when he was shining his light on it, it would keep peeking in and out from behind this tree. The ones laying on the ground that kind of bothered me later on. I didn't really put two and two together, but I heard on this other podcast this gentleman he turned around and this dog man was laying flat on the ground, just laying flat on the ground. I got to think, well, that's probably what they were doing was laying flat on the ground. But anyway, as Richard's shining this light on this one, I finally get a pretty good glance at it. And I'm not 100% a sighting, but I caught the silhouette of this thing. And I noticed it had the snout of a dog. It looked like it had the snout of a dog. And I looked in the eyes of this thing. Like I always say, it's probably not a good idea. I did. I looked in the eyes. And when I did, I sensed an evil presence. I
Yeah.
told Richard, that's not a Bigfoot. This probably went on probably 10 or 15 minutes throughout the whole ordeal. As we're going back out of there, I start texting DA when we get closer to where we put the boat in. I'm asking him how far apart are the eyes of a dog man and all that kind of stuff. And then later on, he's like, "Be careful, dude. They'll follow you home." I'm like, "Will they follow you home 30 miles?" He's like, "Don't be surprised, especially if you shoot at one." I'm like, well, I didn't shoot at it. I didn't shoot.
Good
But
thing.
yeah. Anyway, when we got back to the boat ramp, this is the same place that we found that other track. We get back to the boat ramp, and I find another track, and I sent this one to you too. It's the more narrow track that kind of goes up like this and then kind of flares out at the end.
Yeah.
I'm thinking another Bigfoot track. But the first time I was on DA and Robbie's show, DA Ex Machina, me and Richard were on there, and Robbie got the thing. I would put that more akin to a Dogman track. I'm like, well, you didn't have to tell me that, Robbie. He's like, well,
right. You have to ruin my night, man. Come on.
yeah. But it's, and I don't believe in coincidences, but for us to find a Bigfoot track after Combs Ferry and what we thought was a Bigfoot experience, and then to find what somebody thinks was a possible Dogman track after we have a Dogman. How are they at the boat ramp before we either get back, or are they there when we leave? I mean, how does that correlate?
Man,
Is there
and
another?
they're not slow. So, I mean, they boogie. When they get to moving, they boogie. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could have beat you there. And you might have been the only humans in the area, and they smelled you, and they were like, that's them. We're going to, scare them out.
Yeah. I mean, and this place where we put the boat in, if you go back probably 100, 200 yards the other way, there's all sorts of, houses and stuff right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a section of woods over here. I guess it'd be off when you're looking at it, it'd be off to the right. There's a little section of woods down there, but other than that, that's about the only place they have to hide.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear about them going into residential areas all the time.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. It blows my mind. I can't put two and two together on that.
That is weird, man. It's not, man, you should try to talk to those people that live close to that boat ramp and see if they've had any kind of experiences or anything.
I'd almost
over
bet
there.
somebody's had to have seen something through there.
They had to have, man. And the dog man following you home. I heard a story about a kid who was deer hunting with his dad, and I think the dog man was chasing a deer, and they shot at it, and it followed them 30, 40 miles, man, back to their house. They didn't think it would because they didn't know what it was,
Right.
And they were terrified because the kid said, I see something at my window. And the dad goes and he sees it standing there and it's smiling at him, and they do like that evil smile or something. And it, and it terrorized them for a while. I forgot how they got rid of it, or maybe it just ended up getting bored and decided it's going to torment somebody else. But there's so many stories of them tormenting people. Once they lock onto you, they say they stay with you forever or follow you forever if they like you.
So far, I'm glad this one didn't take any interest in me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's if they like you. I think that's kind of a weird way to say if they like you. But yeah, and there's I read one story and it was quite interesting to me. And I don't know if you've ever heard of something like this, but it was a dog man encounter. And I don't remember where I read it at, but it seemed pretty good, pretty legit. But they said that they can mind speak sometimes, and they'll talk to you through your mind, and that the lady started praying to God, and the dog man said, "Oh, you're one of those," and then left. So, I mean, I remember reading that, and I was like,
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, but that's not the first time I've heard something like that with them. I've heard people seeing them and turning on Christian music, and them bolting. They can't handle it. So
yeah, I've heard that kind of stuff too. Yeah, you speak the name of Jesus or pray about it.
Yeah,
and they usually go away.
And they have to leave, and people coming home and them being in their house. Like, imagine you coming home from work, you open the door, and there's a 10-foot tall wolf standing in your freaking living room watching TV. Like, what do you? I mean,
it's like you gonna pay rent, or you gonna get out?
Yeah, and then you get your Bigfoot encounters, and they're not nearly as, they're terrifying, but they're not nearly something like that. And they've been at war since forever, to quote Gridiron Gang, since ancient times, dude. You know, they've been at war, and yeah, I can kind of see why. You know, dogmen sound like dickheads, and they
In a
don't
way,
seem
yeah.
like yeah, man. And me, I'm always listening to Dogman podcast, trying to find a and trying to figure out. I like to study them and hear hear the encounters. But sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't even remember what I was going to say, bud. I'm getting old.
Oh, I feel you on that one, brother. But yeah, man, that's one of my favorite cryptids. That and werewolves, you know. But werewolves are a little bit different because sometimes they're human
Right.
burst. I think dogmen have always just been whatever they are. They're there.
Yeah, I mean, I've got stories from Dogman going back into the Bible times. You know, Saint
Mhm.
Christopher was supposed to be the dog-headed saint, and
Yeah,
I guess when he performed his, I think the way DA explains it, when he performed his first miracle, then he was transformed back into a human or something like that.
yeah. So yeah, he was like cursed or something, and then and then he transformed into a human. And it's like, they've been around for so long, and we're just now hearing about them really, and the stories are coming out left and right. But I was doing some research, and there's stories that go back hundreds of years, and even there's one that somebody had right down the road from me in like
Really?
1969. Yeah, if I can remember how it went. Basically, they were driving down the road. And yeah, I think it was in the 60s. Driving down the road, and this the way they quoted, this giant werewolf darts out in front of them. They slam on their brakes, and it stops in front of the car and looks, and that's how they knew it. And they seen the big head, the big wolf head, and the standing on two legs, and it just takes back off. And I'm like, man, that's intense, And
It would be intense.
yeah, and I don't know, and I've had I've had my doubts of cryptids being in this area, but then like the more I researched my area, the more I could see it being possible, just because there are some areas that are super freaking wooded. Yeah, it's a lot of grown up now because a lot of people moved to this area just because it's coastal plains. But I mean, they found the Bigfoot tracks after Harvey hit. They found the one in the town that I live now. It was on the news. Bob Gimlin, not the old man, but the YouTuber. He covered it, and you can look it up. Look up, I forget what year it is, but Santa Fe Bigfoot, and you'll see him go into it. And it's one of those things, man. And then listening to your stories, and you're out kind of like me, I guess, in like a rural area, and it's just they're everywhere. It makes you wonder, like, do you think they travel? How many could hold on? How many do you think could be in one area at one time? Is what I'm trying to get at. There we go.
But if you're going in the rural areas, like the woods and stuff like that, there could be a lot, especially if you got a good, a good water source and
Hmm.
plenty of wildlife. Uh, when you get more in like the cities and stuff, I think it's the how often they can sneak around during the night and get into dumpsters and stuff. And of course, the big cities, there's all sorts of dumpsters they can get into.
Right.
And then you hear some people talking about them having the ability to cloak, or
Yeah.
the, the way I kind of think of it, I think it could be the light shine, the light reflects their hair reflects the light off of them, so they can't be seen that way. Uh, and I think maybe that's part of my sightings have been we've been shining these bright lights, and maybe their fur's absorbing the light and you can't really see it. But as far as the city areas go, yeah, I think if there's a bunch of dumpsters and restaurants in the area, there could probably be several if I was guessing. That one
Yeah.
track
Definitely.
the track that I sent you in the snow,
Hmm.
it's beside a dumpster here in my hometown.
Wow.
My dad,
Yeah,
my dad sent that.
because that one's very like it's right there in your face. That is a very defined track right there, and uh, And that was so cool, man. Getting to see all those pictures, I really did enjoy looking at that, man.
Uh, that track
That's
by the
crazy.
dumpster, the one in the snow. This has been a couple years after that actually happened, but I go to the gym up here behind a little ways from my house, and some kid was saying, "Oh yeah, I bought my dad a set of those, Bigfoot shoes that you can wear around and make tracks on the ground." It got me thinking, um, could that have been somebody like that wearing a set of those shoes? But I got to talking to Robbie on that when we were on his podcast that time. He's like, "Well, what's different about all those other tracks? Because there's some other tracks there, like like human footprints and boots and stuff." He's like, "What's different about that track compared to all the other ones?" I'm like, "Oh, it's bigger." He's like, "No, not the obvious, but you could tell by like look at the bottom of the track. There wasn't any snow. He got down to the ground a lot more than the other one. So he said that's dwell time. It was standing there for a little while.
Mhm.
So that makes me think that it was something actually alive that stood there long enough to melt the snow underneath it.
Yeah,
Because it,
exactly. That's interesting, man. And I covered a little bit that on the end of one of my episodes. I think it was one of my solo episodes, and I was saying that people always want to claim it's a hoax. Oh, a fake. Somebody's going around doing. Okay, yeah, but you can't keep saying that when people are finding tracks 60 miles out. Nobody's going 60 miles out in the woods hoping somebody's going to find this track. You know,
right.
and even in some. But what goober's going to stand out in snow hoping they're going to trick somebody? I mean, I get it. There's some weirdos out there, but come on, man. Nah, I think you had a legit Bigfoot track, man. I think it's legit, dude. And that's pretty cool find, man.
Yeah, my dad he sent that to me because he knows I'm into this kind of stuff, and he kind of had his own experiences out in the wood years ago. But so, and
And
my grandpa,
being
I don't know if it follows the family
oh,
tree or what it is, but
right, y'all are just Bigfoot are they're addicted to y'all, man. Every time you're around, they seem to come around. Well, I know we were kind of talking about it, but I was serious, man. We need to do a Texas expedition or meet somewhere in the middle and go out and see if we can scrounge something up one evening or one weekend, something like that.
sounds like a plan to me. We need to make it happen
Yeah,
one of these days.
we definitely do. We definitely do, man. That would be pretty freaking cool. I think I want to do a little research and stuff, and been I've heard of a few areas up near Arkansas uh that have some good areas, and they got like the Red River supposedly has a ton of areas near the Red River. Apparently, that's a hot spot from all the stories I've been reading lately.
Heck yeah,
But all
I'll
right,
be down
brother,
like
I
four
don't want
flat tires.
to, right? Yeah, I just finished Robbie's book. His second one, I was like, man, that's pretty good, dude. They were good books. I'm ready for the third one.
DA's got a new book coming out before too long too. I'm ready to read both of those.
I know I know, and I hate it because I blow through them, and then I'm like, oh, now I got to go find somebody else to read. And I like Luca too. Luca T. Jacobs. You've read her book, some of hers.
Yeah, I think I may be reading one of them right now or listening to it.
Yeah, they're pretty
Did she
good.
write the book Rogue?
Wanna say I know the one I've read of hers. It's the werewolf and the old man. The guy's a sheriff, and he turns into a werewolf, and then it's like a little kid werewolf. I don't know. It's hard to explain it. It's kind of everywhere, but it's a really good book. Maybe she did write it, but she's a good writer too. It's one of my favorites. I
Seems
know
like
me and Robbie
I
talked
think I may
about
have
it.
listened to one of them. I
And
don't
then,
mean to keep interrupting you. I'm sorry, bud.
oh, dude, it's podcast. That's what it is, man, and I like it. I like having banter. It makes it easier for me.
Oh yeah.
Did you? I know, and I just talked about books, but I like to talk because I like to read them. Did you? You should check out Boone County too. That's a good one. Once you're done, uh, oh God, who writes Boone County? I don't know, but the main character is Jackson Campbell, and it's very good. There's two or three parts, two or three books, and
Okay.
it's good. It's a werewolf. If you like werewolves, it's all about werewolves,
Heck yeah.
and then they're
I'm
very
pretty much
good.
into all the cryptids.
I know. I found one today. It's called Genoska, and I
You
think
need
I'm
to
gonna
read it.
give that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna give that one a try next. Get it on
He's got four.
audio.
I'm actually
Okay.
friends with him. I'm friends with the author on Facebook, but uh, Da had him on his podcast. And
Oh, did he?
I hate to say it, but I can't remember his name at the moment. But those are really good
Well, that's
books.
okay. Okay, I'm gonna give that one a try, man. I think I'm gonna download it tomorrow.
It's worth it. I have it on audiobook, but it's worth it.
Yeah, audiobook's easier for me, especially when I'm working. It's just easier to just put my headphone in and put the audiobook on and do it. Then at night when I get home, I can switch back to my Kindle and read it before I lay down. But audiobooks are sweet. But all right, brother, I'm gonna get off here, taking up quite a bit of your time, and let you get back to doing what you were doing. But before I go, give a shout out to your podcast and let everybody know where they can find you and all that kind of good stuff.
All right, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you letting me do that. Me and Richard, we've started a new podcast on YouTube called Boone County Cryptids. Uh, we put out an introductory video, and uh, I made some little shorts and stuff like that. But uh, then we have a TikTok. You can look up at Boone County Cryptids on TikTok, and we have a TikTok. Uh, right now, those are about the only places we're at the moment. But uh, before too long, we're going to start scheduling interviews and stuff. Brad, you're more than welcome to come on and anytime you want to.
I definitely will. Just let me know. I love coming on. I love coming on shows and stuff. Just let me know when, and I'll definitely be
All
there.
right.
But
Sounds like a plan.
all right, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, that's it for tonight, everybody. Remember, if you want to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is polarbearhoth@gmail.com. Reach out to me on TikTok or Instagram, polarbearhoth, or you can DM me on Facebook, Highway of the Hidden. Thank y'all. Have a great week.